Hello, my name's Brenda. I used to think staying silent made me stronger, that if I just kept helping, giving, showing up, they'd eventually see me. But then my cousin sent me a video, my sister laughing, mocking me at her wedding, a wedding held at my venue, paid with my money, under a contract I never signed. They said I was family, so why did I feel like the hired help? And if that was just the start, what else have they been hiding? What would you do if the people you loved the most built an entire celebration around erasing you? Monday started like most days. Coffee brewed strong, inbox already bloated by 8:03 a.m., and me seated behind the reception glass at Relia & Company, my event venue in the heart of downtown Savannah. Sunlight filtered through the gold-tinted blinds, throwing warm streaks across the marble tile. I was clicking through the weekly booking queue, flagging invoice errors and checking vendor confirmations. Nothing unusual, until I saw that name. Gacy Kemper Wedding, Private Coordinator. The title glared back at me from our master calendar like graffiti on a church wall. My fingers hovered over the mouse, motionless. Gacy. That was my sister's last name. Delphine Gacy. There was no reason she should be attached to anything on my venue schedule, not without my consent. I hit the intercom. "Justine, you in yet?" A few seconds later, my assistant's voice crackled through. "Yep, just walked in. You need something?" "I need you in my office now." While I waited, I opened the event profile. Booking had been submitted through a third-party coordinator, Monroe Events Group, not our internal client intake system. The file listed the venue as Ballroom A, Full Luxury Service Package, date set for June 22nd. That was a premium slot, one we typically locked 6 months in advance. Justine arrived, tablet in hand, her expression already bracing for trouble. "Do you recognize this name?" I turned the monitor toward her. Her brows lifted. "Delphine? Isn't that your—" "Yes," I cut in. "That's my sister. But I didn't authorize this." Justine scrolled through the file. "Says it was booked 3 weeks ago, via Monroe, signed and paid." "Signed by who?" she tapped. "Brenda Relia." My blood chilled. "Open the contract." She clicked the PDF open. Sure enough, there it was. My name at the bottom, in a signature that looked almost like mine. Elegant loops, confident strokes, but too wide, too dramatic. "I didn't sign this." Justine looked up, concern etched on her face. "Are you sure?" "I'd never sign a 6-figure booking without a face-to-face." We both stared at the screen. Total balance, $198,650. Package, custom floral installs, live musicians, valet, full bar, luxury rentals, imported linens, all charged under my name, with me listed as the financial underwriter. I opened my archive folder, scrolled to a verified contract from a previous client, and pulled up my actual signature. Side by side, the forgery became obvious. Whoever copied it had done their homework. But not enough. Justine let out a low whistle. "This is big." I didn't answer. I was already 3 steps ahead, remembering a text from my mother sent weeks ago. "Don't worry about the family stuff, sweetheart. We're handling it." Handling it? Apparently by forging my damn name. I clicked into our family WhatsApp thread. Buried between forwarded memes and Bible quotes, I found Delphine's message. "Hope you all are free June 22nd. It's gonna be the event of the year." Nothing else. No context, no venue mention, no RSVP follow-up, because there was nothing to confirm. It was a setup. They didn't need me to agree. They needed me to not check until it was too late. A sick heat pooled in my chest. I turned to Justine. "Do we still archive overnight footage from last week?" She nodded. 7-day loop. Why? "I want to see who's been inside my ballroom." We fast-forwarded through the footage from 3 nights ago. There she was, Delphine, strutting through Ballroom A in stilettos, draped in silk, followed by a planner and 2 interns carrying clipboards and iPads. She never checked in. No clipboard signature, no call to staff, no text to me. She walked through my building like she owned the damn place. My jaw locked. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a surprise party. This was a hijack. I inhaled through my nose and exhaled slowly. Every instinct screamed for confrontation. I wanted to call her, to call my mother, to scream through every group chat. Instead, I clicked print on the contract. I took screenshots of the signature, the timestamped footage, and the booking portal metadata. On my desktop, I created a new folder. Delphine June inside it, I saved every file with precise names. Forged_signature.pdf ballroom_footage _06-01.mov event _listing_monroe.png no confrontation. Not yet. Just documentation. Just preparation, I whispered under my breath. You chose war. I choose the weapon. Then I closed the folder, leaned back in my chair, and stared at the wall of floral samples behind my desk. The same ones I'd chosen for a client who actually respected my work. My fingers tapped the edge of the desk, steady and deliberate. She really thought I'd say nothing, I murmured, half smiling. She's right, for now. I stayed late that night. After saving the files and locking the office, I didn't go straight home. I walked the halls of Rilya and Company, past the arched doorways I designed, past the sconces I picked out, past the rooms my name paid for. I told myself I was just doing rounds, making sure everything was in place for the weekend weddings. But deep down, I needed to feel the bones of the place, to remind myself this building didn't just have my name on it, it had me in it. That's why the next morning, when I returned for a routine walkthrough, I knew something was off before I even stepped through the front lobby. The air had changed. There were lilies in the air. Lilies I didn't order. I could hear someone laughing from Ballroom A, a sharp, over-rehearsed cackle bouncing off the marble walls. As I walked toward the noise, I saw white rose petals scattered on the entry rug, petals that hadn't been part of any plan I approved. Inside, the ballroom was flooded with natural light, and Delphine. She was standing dead center under the crystal chandelier, the one I had flown in from Italy, wearing a silk jumpsuit, heels too loud for tile, and oversized sunglasses that screamed influencer in denial. She was snapping her fingers at the florist, waving a binder, pointing to the arrangements like she was commanding a film set. I blinked. Once. Slowly. My breath steadied. Who approved this? I asked, my voice low but clear, addressing the nearest staffer, a fresh-faced kid arranging centerpieces. He froze. The client, Miss Gacy. I turned to look at her. Delphine hadn't seen me yet. I took 2 steps forward. The kid quietly backed away, muttering something about checking the ribbons. And then she saw me. Delphine's posture shifted. She tilted her head, slowly pulling her sunglasses down to the tip of her nose. Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence, she said, loud enough for the room to hear. I kept walking. Delphine's lips curved into a smirk. You're not needed here, Brenda. I wasn't aware I needed your permission to enter my own venue, I said calmly. She raised an eyebrow. You don't. But this space is reserved for real guests. Then she turned to her planner, gestured toward me like I was a health code violation, and said the words that would be burned into my spine for years. Someone get her out of here. Kick this beggar out. This is a luxury space, not a shelter. A silence fell. Not the kind that asks for clarification, the kind that knows what was just said. No one moved. A young staffer dropped a clipboard. A vase teetered and clinked but didn't shatter. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, watching it all. Watching how everyone, every intern, every vendor, every coordinator, pretended like I wasn't even there. Except Justine. She walked in through the side door, 5 seconds too late, scanning the room before locking eyes with me. Her steps slowed, her lips parted, as if to speak, but the air was too tight. She could read it. The heat, the humiliation, the burn of standing in your own house and being treated like furniture. Delphine rolled her eyes, turning back to her planner. Well, are we doing a run-through or not? I didn't speak. I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and calmly opened the camera. My thumb tapped record. Delphine turned her head just slightly. Oh my God, are you recording right now? For venue records, I said flatly. She barked a laugh. Are you going to sue your family now? For using a room you probably didn't even build with your own money? I kept filming. Quiet. Steady. No, I replied. I'm just not going to forget. And with that, I turned and walked out. I didn't slam doors. I didn't shout. But inside, a different kind of scream started. Not from pain, but from the beginning of something sharper, something colder. Justine followed me into my office. I sat down, opened my laptop. The folder was still there. Delphine June. I dragged the new clip into it and labeled it verbal_ejection_ballroom.mauve. Justine leaned against the doorway. That was brutal, she said softly. She meant every word. I nodded. She always does. You want me to pull her contract? She asked. No. I didn't look up. Let her dig the hole first. Justine hesitated, then crossed the room and placed a cup of coffee on my desk. I opened a blank spreadsheet. Across the top, sister account emotional overdrafts. First row, date vertical bar, incident vertical bar, emotional cost vertical bar response. I didn't fill anything in yet. I just stared at the blank cells. Then I clicked save. That night, I didn't go out. I didn't scroll social media. I poured a glass of wine, sat on my couch, and opened an old email my father once sent me after I'd paid for his car repair. You've always been the strong one, B. That's why we lean on you. Back then, it felt like love. Now it felt like a sentence. I stared across the living room, at the wall where I'd framed the menu from my first restaurant. It was hand-typed, printed at a corner FedEx, laminated with the cheap roll I could afford at the time. But it had my name on it. I leaned back and whispered to the room, You built this. Don't let them rewrite that. Then I reached for my phone. I pressed play on the recording from earlier. Her voice echoed through my living room like it was still bouncing off ballroom walls. Kick this beggar out. I closed my eyes and breathed in the words. Next time she opens her mouth, I said, I'll own the microphone. Kick this beggar out. It was still echoing, in my head, in my bones. But what echoed louder wasn't what she said. It was the memory it triggered. Not the one from yesterday, but from years ago. I was 19, freshly moved into my first dorm at college, trying to juggle 2 jobs and a double major. Delphine had called crying. Again, she'd just failed another class and wanted me to co-sign a private loan. It's just until next semester, she swore. I told her no, not because I didn't love her, but because my credit was barely breathing. That night, my mother called. If you think you're too good for this family, don't come back. The words hit harder than I expected. Not because they hurt, but because she meant them. She weaponized the one thing I had always clung to, my place in this family. That wasn't the first time. It was just the first time I heard it out loud. I took a long sip from the mug. The morning air felt heavier than usual. I tapped the side of the cup and thought about all the invoices life had handed me. Not the financial ones, the emotional ones, the invisible ledgers they kept. My college degree? We sacrificed for you. The opening of my first restaurant? You couldn't have done that if we hadn't helped with Delphine all those years. Even the mortgage I paid on time, by myself, without a penny from anyone? That's still family land. We raised you there. Every success came with a guilt-coated receipt. I got up and walked back inside, opened my laptop, not to work, but to dig. I searched Mom in my inbox. Dozens of old emails popped up. Birthdays, holidays, check-ins that weren't really check-ins. Don't forget where you came from. Your sister really looks up to you. It wouldn't kill you to show more gratitude. There was a voicemail too, 2 minutes long. I played it on speaker as I paced the kitchen. Hey honey, I was just thinking about you. Your dad and I were talking about how proud we are. But you know, Delphine's been going through a hard time again, and it would mean a lot if you stepped up. Just remember how much we've done for you, okay? She said it like she was asking for a favor. But it sounded like a warning. I closed the email tab and opened an old folder from years ago. A scan of hospital records from when I was 10, pneumonia, week-long stay, IVs, oxygen, shadows moving behind white curtains. I remembered my mom sitting in the visitor's chair every night. I remembered thinking, this is what love looks like. But I also remembered something else, a phone call. Her whispering angrily into the receiver when she thought I was asleep. We gave up everything for her, Martin. Everything. You're working night shifts. I lost my job. We're drowning because of her. This better be worth it. She came back into the room that night and stroked my hair like nothing happened. You're the reason I'm strong, she said. You saved me. That moment used to make me cry when I thought about it. But now it felt like an exchange. A silent deal made without my consent. They loved me, conditionally. I pulled up a draft email I'd written 6 months ago after Delphine's second engagement fell apart, and my mother casually suggested I fund her therapy. It was raw, half rant, half begging. I just wish things were different between us. I hovered over the delete button, then clicked it. Gone. I opened another draft. This one never sent. It was sharper. Honest. You've never asked how I'm doing, only what I'm giving. I didn't send it either. I saved it in the Delphine June folder, right next to the video clip. Back on the porch, the sky had turned to gold, sun cutting through leaves. But I couldn't shake the weight. I grabbed my journal, the one I only used when things were too heavy for screens. I wrote, I'm tired of trading silence for peace. I'm tired of pretending guilt is love. I'm tired of being the one who holds the umbrella while everyone else dances in the rain. I closed the book and walked to the mirror in my hallway. Looked myself square in the face. No makeup, no filter, no performance. This time, I said to my own reflection, I won't forget who I am. The clock read 11:47 p.m. I set an alarm for 5 a.m., walked back to my desk, opened a new browser tab, typed in, Family Contracts, Georgia Law Scroll. Click. I kept scrolling until one bold headline stopped me in my tracks. Emotional manipulation is abuse too. I leaned in, not to cry, but to read. By the time dawn rolled in, the Georgia sky had shifted to a dull gray. I'd read every article, every legal clause about family coercion, manipulation, soft abuse, and still, none of it prepared me for what hit next. I was pouring coffee when my phone buzzed. It was Ari, my cousin from Baton Rouge. We weren't close, but she was the kind of relative who stayed quiet until something really needed to be said. Her text was short. Check Delphine's story, don't wait. Something about those 4 words made my skin crawl. I opened Instagram, thumb hesitant. The video was still fresh, only up for 4 hours. A split screen, on the left, Delphine sipping champagne from a coupe glass, laughing like she just won a pageant. On the right, my driveway, my 10-year-old Honda Civic easing into its usual spot. The caption read, When your rich sister lives like she's in witness protection. She tagged no one, of course. Just a few hashtags, hash relatable, luxury hash, some people choose dusty. For a few seconds, I froze. Then the comment section pulled me in like a riptide. That house screams anxiety. Not her driving that? She's basically poor on purpose, huh? Imagine having that much money and still living like a ghost. I stared at the screen, then looked up, caught my own reflection in the kitchen window. Same old me, bun half-tied, sweatshirt faded from too many washes. The car parked crooked outside with a dented bumper and a Georgia tag 1 year overdue. I paid for that car, I whispered. I built this house. No help, no loans, no credit cards in someone else's name. Just my work, my hands, my 5 a.m. alarms. And that's what they mocked. Ari texted again. This video didn't go public first. I saw it in her private group. She's been joking like this for weeks. Thought you should know. I blinked. Private group? She sent me a link to a Reddit thread. I hesitated, then clicked. There it was. My name, in a thread titled Luxury Isn't Always Loud. The post had been shared under a burner account, but the tone was unmistakably Delphine's. She described a family member who hoards money like a doomsday prepper and refuses to upgrade her life despite being loaded. People ran wild with it. Classic emotional manipulation tactic. Make yourself look poor to guilt the rich ones. That screams trauma. Probably the type who thinks Target is a personality. I closed the browser, not because I couldn't read more, but because I knew exactly what this was. It wasn't just pettiness. It wasn't just passive aggression. It was a calculated branding effort. She wasn't just mocking me to friends. She was positioning me, rewriting me, making me a character, a punchline, for strangers to chew on. And they didn't even know me, but she gave them just enough to laugh. I didn't respond. I didn't post a rebuttal or tweet a clapback. Instead, I opened my email and sent one line to my PR assistant. If anyone contacts you, we are not commenting. Then I opened my spreadsheet again, added 2 columns. Column A, emotional debts. Column B, public digs. I scrolled to the top and changed the title. Social Sabotage Log Delphine. I typed the date, pasted the Reddit link, filed the Instagram screenshot. A few hours later, I drove to my parents' street. It wasn't planned. My GPS didn't direct me, my hands did. As I turned onto their block, I slowed at the bend. Their lawn had already been half covered in decorations. White and gold balloons, an arch of faux peonies, folding chairs stacked under the magnolia tree. Early wedding prep. They hadn't called me. Not once. Not even to pretend I'd be welcome. I sat there, engine idling. My eyes tracked every chair, every table being unloaded from the rental truck. I wasn't surprised, but I had hoped. For what? I don't even know. Maybe for someone to ask if I'd show, if I'd help, if I even mattered enough to RSVP. But no one did. And maybe they didn't forget. Maybe they just knew I wouldn't come. I pressed the gas, didn't look back. When I pulled into my own driveway, the last rays of afternoon sun stretched across my porch. I turned off the ignition, stared at the house I built, and whispered to the silence, "Keep laughing, Delphine. The next sound you hear will be mine." I didn't go inside right away. After I pulled into the driveway, I just sat there in the car. The engine clicked quietly as it cooled, the last streaks of pink fading into dusk above the rooftop. I'd said those words, "The next sound you hear will be mine," and they still rang in my ears like a promise I hadn't figured out how to deliver. Then I saw it. A courier van slowed in front of my house. The driver jumped out, a clipboard in hand, and a familiar cream-colored envelope under his arm. I knew that branding. Monroe Events Group, Delphine's wedding planner. I didn't open the door. I waited for the soft thud of the envelope against the welcome mat and the low hum of the van pulling away. I picked it up, turned it over. Gold foil embossed, expensive, excessive, predictable. Inside, a formal invitation to a pre-wedding dinner for family and close friends. I almost laughed. They still think I'm coming. But something deeper than humor stirred. Something colder, more exacting. They hadn't just dismissed me. They were counting on my silence. Again. I took a photo of the invite, sent it to Justine with one line. "Schedule me for a walkthrough. I want to be there when Virginia arrives." Because if they were going to walk into my venue, with my name on the lease and my team on the ground, then I deserved front row to every fake smile and every forced toast. The next morning at Relia and Company, I showed up early. Justine had arranged a quiet vendor walkthrough under a different internal project name, so Delphine wouldn't catch wind. Everything was perfect, down to the ridiculous crystal-draped centerpieces and the imported lilies someone had ordered without my signature. It was my space, but it looked like hers. That was about to change. By 11 a.m., the Monroe family's black town car pulled in. Virginia Knowles stepped out first, looking exactly like the type of woman who ran boardrooms in heels and made partners cry behind conference doors. Ronald followed, silent and smooth in a charcoal suit. Their assistant trailed them, expression unreadable. I met Virginia at the entrance, extended my hand. "Miss Knowles, thank you for coming. There's something I believe you'll want to see." She gave me a tight-lipped smile. "You have 5 minutes." That's all I needed. We stepped into a side room. I didn't explain. I just played the 20-second clip from my phone. Delphine's voice, clear as crystal. "She's basically a wallet with Wi-Fi." I watched Virginia's face. She didn't flinch, just lifted her teacup, took a sip, and set it down. Then she turned to me and said calmly, "Thank you for showing me the difference between a venue and a vision." I met her eyes. "I'm not asking you to cancel anything. Just don't let her lie on my name." She extended her hand. "Understood." Nothing more, nothing less. But that handshake, it said everything. The pre-wedding dinner was held in the same ballroom she mocked just days earlier. Everything looked perfect. Not a candle out of place, not a wine glass misaligned. But the air? The air was dense, charged. I stood near the bar, sipping sparkling water, keeping distance. Delphine spotted me across the room. She didn't approach immediately. No, she waited until she saw me speak briefly to Virginia. That's when her expression shifted. She marched toward me, heels clicking too hard against the marble. "So," she began, that trademark sneer curling at the edges. Trying to score points with the Monroes now? I didn't even blink. You're confusing points with proof, I said softly. Keep pushing, Del. The next move is yours. But the next consequence? That's mine. Her jaw twitched. For a beat she tried to laugh, but it didn't land. Her eyes flicked toward Virginia, who was watching from the far side of the room. Don't flatter yourself, Delphine muttered before storming off. I didn't follow. Didn't need to. Later that night, I was back in my office. Justine forwarded me an email. Subject line: Thank you for your discretion. From Virginia Knowles. You were right to stay silent until the moment it mattered. I didn't reply. I copied the message and pasted it under a new subfolder in my desktop archive. Delphine June, shift begins. Justine texted soon after. She noticed. They all noticed. I stood in the center of the ballroom, light still glowing over polished marble, soft classical music playing low in the background, and I whispered to the stillness, she's not the only one who knows how to build an audience. It started with a Slack ping. The little bubble popped up on my screen while I was reviewing floral invoices. Jordan, venue staff. Hey, not sure if anyone showed you this yet. Check the ballroom cam from last night. Timestamp 9:46 p.m. I clicked the security portal, keyed in the time. The video loaded. There she was, Delphine, in that same off-the-shoulder white jumpsuit she wore when she wanted attention, but not feedback. She was standing in the middle of Ballroom A, arms flailing, voice high-pitched and angry. You! Hey, linen girl! Yes, you! Is this what I asked for? A young florist, barely 20, stood frozen beside a half-finished centerpiece. I recognized her. Camilla, first-generation Salvadoran American. Quiet. Always early. Always kind. Delphine didn't wait for an answer. She yanked a rose from the arrangement and flung it across the floor. This is depressing. My followers will drag me if this crap is in the background. Are you people illiterate or just lazy? Silence. You could hear someone in the back inhale sharply. Camilla's hands trembled. Another staffer, Elijah, stepped in trying to redirect. Delphine shoved the clipboard he held. It hit the floor with a hard slap. I paused the video. My jaw clenched. My hands did not shake. I downloaded the file immediately, renamed it Delphine_abuse_ballrooma_06-14.mov. Then I opened our venue handbook and highlighted section 3.2 in bold yellow. Any client or guest who verbally abuses, harasses, or threatens staff may be removed from the premises and/or have their contract terminated without refund. I attached both files, video and policy excerpt, and typed a new email. To Monroe Events Group subject, Incident Pending Review. Body attached is footage from June 14th, 9:46 p.m. at Rilya and Company Ballroom A. Behavior displayed is in violation of staff safety protocols. Per policy, this is under review for breach of contract. B. Rilya. No salutation, no soft clothes, no fluff. Just fact, just like she gave me. 2 days passed. On Wednesday morning, Justine walked into my office holding a crisp folded printout. Her lips pressed into a flat line. She handed me the letter without a word. At the top, Monroe Events Group, Event Withdrawal Notification. The wedding was off, effective immediately. Due to breach of professional conduct toward venue personnel, Monroe Events Group is withdrawing sponsorship and event hosting support for the Gassy Kemper wedding scheduled June 22nd. No explanation, no cushioning, just black ink on heavy cardstock. I didn't smile, didn't clap, just nodded. Let her explain that one in a reel, I said, reaching for my coffee. The Monroe family wasn't taking calls. Virginia was unavailable for comment. Ronald was traveling abroad. The silence from their end said more than any press release. Delphine had always been loud, but now her silence was deafening. By Friday, the internet caught up. Delphine posted a shaky video, angled badly, crying without tears. She blamed high stress, said she was just passionate about design, and called the clip a gross misrepresentation of a private moment. But the internet doesn't care about context when you insult a brown immigrant girl on camera. TikTok flooded with stitches. Creators mimicked her voice. Linen girl, are you serious, Delphine? One tweet went viral. Guess money doesn't buy manners. # linen girl deserved better. There were memes, parodies, hashtags. Her follower count dipped by the hour. I didn't retweet, didn't like anything, but I watched. Every headline, every comment, every brand that quietly untagged her. You wanted attention, Del? Well, you got it. That evening, I sat alone in my office. The lights dimmed. The hum of the air conditioning buzzed like white noise. I opened my laptop and updated the log. Folder: Delphine, June new entry, event cancelled. Monroe severed ties, clip viral 2.1, M views public sympathy. 87% favorable, based on trending replies. I stared at the numbers like they were weather reports. Predictable, unforgiving. Then I opened a fresh document titled Recovery PR Shield Strategy. Because even if she was burning, I knew better than to stand too close to the smoke. Delphine was reckless, but she wasn't done. Not yet. I could feel it. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair, arms folded behind my head, eyes locked on the ceiling. She'd tried to use my business like a backdrop, my name like a credit card, my silence like consent. But silence isn't a grace period. It's a fuse. And hers just met the match. I whispered into the empty room. You wanted a wedding headline. You got one. The following morning broke gray and quiet. The kind of stillness that felt like it was holding its breath. I stood in the kitchen, the coffee machine humming low, and scrolled aimlessly through unread texts until I saw it. A package on the front porch. No knock. No doorbell. Just a manila envelope resting dead center on the welcome mat. Too neatly placed to be random. I opened the door and picked it up slowly, the paper thick and sealed with no return address. No handwriting, no indication of sender. But it felt heavy, not in weight, but in consequence. I peeled the seal open and slid the contents out. Screenshots, email threads, bank statements, a printout of the contract with my forged signature. Only this version had yellow highlights, red notes, timestamps in the margins. And at the very bottom, a post-it note in clean block letters, in case she tries to turn this on you. That was it. No name, no threat, just a fact. I stood there barefoot on the hardwood floor, the pages fanned out in my hands. My pulse didn't spike, my vision didn't blur, but something settled inside me, hard and permanent, like concrete. Not fear, not revenge, something sharper, clarity. That night, Delphine went live again, this time from a luxury hotel suite. Hair curled just right, eyes glossy, voice cracking on cue. She's always been jealous of me, she said into the camera. Brenda's bitter, always has been. She couldn't handle that I found real love, real support, real success. So she decided to destroy it. She sniffed, wiped away a tear that didn't fall. And you know what hurts the most? Her voice trembled. I thought she was family. Comments poured in faster than she could fake a cry. Then why'd you fake her signature, sis? She's the one who built the venue you trashed. Girl, sit down. Your mascara's not waterproof. And the hashtags rolled on. #Delphine down #. Luxury lies #wallet with Wi-Fi. I didn't comment, didn't call, didn't clap back. I uploaded a single PDF to a public Dropbox folder. One document, no caption, no commentary. It was the real booking contract. The one she forged, circled in red where the signature mismatched mine, side by side with a notarized sample from my business license file. The link spread on its own. Reddit, Facebook, Instagram stories. A lawyer even made a TikTok breaking it down like a crime scene. Within 24 hours, I watched the implosion from my living room. First, the wedding registry website went down. Then, Monroe Events Group scrubbed her from their public schedule. Next, the last of her brand deals, a skincare affiliate link, quietly removed her from their website. And then the real gut punch, Ronald unfollowed her, deleted their engagement photos, changed his relationship status to single. She went live again, visibly shaken, voice higher pitched now, and no ring in sight. They sabotaged me, she stammered. My own blood tried to ruin the happiest day of my life. No one bought it. Even her former bridesmaids, women who once posted coordinated hashtags and bachelorette shots, fell silent. One unfollowed. One liked my Dropbox link. Another posted a single sentence. Should have treated people better. I didn't respond, didn't retweet, didn't bask. I emailed my attorney the anonymous letter with a note. Just in case. Then deleted Delphine's number from my phone. Later that night, I walked through the venue. Ballroom A, once booked to be the scene of her big day, now stood hollow. The chandeliers were dimmed, the stage cleared, no linens, no centerpieces, no illusion, only echoes. I stepped inside, heels clicking softly against polished stone, and whispered to no one, "You didn't just lose a venue, Dell. You lost access. Access to me, to my name, to my labor, to my grace." I locked the door behind me and lingered for a moment in the silence. Not mourning, just observing. Every step out of that room felt like I was burying something. Not just her wedding, not just the drama, the version of our sisterhood I used to hold on to. That old lie we tell ourselves, family always means loyalty. No, sometimes it just means history. And some history doesn't need to be repeated. I returned home late, too late for dinner, too tired for wine, just silence and the hum of the fridge. My inbox pinged. A new message, from Delphine. The subject, "You win." The body, "Are you happy now?" I didn't open it. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to my attorney with the same subject line and closed the thread. Let silence be my punctuation. Before bed, I lit a single candle on my desk, not for peace, not for healing, but for presence. One breath, one moment, one reminder. This wasn't about a wedding. This wasn't about vengeance. This was about reclamation. The room dimmed to golden shadows, and I stood in the doorway, staring back at my own reflection in the window. "She always needed the stage," I said, "but I own the theater." I turned off the ballroom lights in my head, one by one, like a slow fade to black. The final bulb flickered, then went out. The silence was complete. I didn't check my phone right away that morning. I let the quiet fill the house first. The kind of quiet that doesn't ache, just exists. The scent of brewed coffee from the automatic timer barely pulled me from bed. I walked barefoot into the kitchen, each step slower than the last. Not because I was tired, but because I finally didn't have to hurry. No new texts, no missed calls, just a notification from my security system. Front gate opened, 6:04 a.m. That was probably the dog walker I'd hired for the neighbor's lab while they were away. And then I saw it. The banana bread. Still wrapped in plastic, tucked in the corner of the fridge. A relic from 3 days ago. Mom had dropped it off without a word, left it on the porch like an offering. I picked it up, held it in my hands. It was the kind she used to bake when we were little, when Delphine and I still shared a room, and trust wasn't currency. It used to mean something. But not this time. I tossed it in the trash, didn't even unwrap it. "It's not an apology," I said out loud. "It's a pacifier." Back in my office, I pulled out an old folder from the locked drawer, my own version of a family ledger, not accounting for business, accounting for the emotional and financial lines I'd crossed in the name of loyalty. Row after row stared back at me. $3,200, co-signed car for Delphine, never paid. $900, AC unit for mom and dad. $250 here, $400 there. Holiday loans that became gifts. At the bottom of one page was my own handwriting in a younger script. "Stop asking, just give." I stared at that line for a long time, like it belonged to someone I used to know, but had no plans of becoming again. I opened my laptop, logged into the bank portal, and found the automatic transfers. Click, cancel. The one for Delphine's rent? Gone. The one for the family cell plan? Gone. The one I forgot I even set up to pay for Dad's satellite subscription? Terminated. One by one, I erased the invisible strings they'd used to pull me back. The phone rang. Dad. I let it buzz through the first 4 rings before I answered. "Hey, B." His voice cracked slightly. I stayed quiet. He cleared his throat. "Just checking in. You doing okay?" I still didn't speak. He tried again. "Look, I don't know everything that's gone down. I know she's not doing great, but maybe that's on us. Maybe we didn't see how much we leaned on you." I took a breath, then said, "I don't need anyone to do well. I just need the truth to matter." Before he could reply, I hung up. No anger, just air. Later that afternoon, I walked the edge of the main ballroom while the fundraiser team did their prep. Folding tables were being draped in soft beige linens, candles being placed, silent auction baskets lined up near the fountain. It wasn't my event, but it was my space. Justine came up beside me, holding a clipboard. They asked if you'd want to speak tonight, just a few words before the auction. I looked around at the women organizing everything, some survivors, some advocates, all wearing strength like second skin. No, I said. Let them tell their stories. Mine's still being written. Justine smiled. Copy that. The sun had dipped low by the time I got home. The house, for the first time in weeks, felt warm. Not just temperature, energy. I changed into a sweatshirt, pulled my hair into a loose bun, and lit a candle. The kind with the sandalwood scent I used to think was too strong, but now found comforting. Grounding. I pulled out my journal and wrote in soft black ink, "Some wounds don't need revenge, they need fresh air." Then paused, and added, "I'm not the girl they raised, I'm the woman I raised myself to be." I closed the book, blew out the candle, and let the smoke rise into the dark. No parade, no post, no press release, just stillness. And I didn't shrink in it. I stood taller than I had in months. Title, "The End is Mine to Write." The light was barely breaking when I padded barefoot to the kitchen. The wood floors were cool, grounding. A single tea bag steeped quietly in my favorite mug, the one with the chipped rim I could never quite throw away. It had character. It had been through things. I curled up on the couch, legs folded under me, and opened my laptop. No rush, no plan, just instinct. I clicked open the drafts folder. Unsent emails lined the screen like tiny ghosts, silent, preserved moments frozen in time. One to my mother, time-stamped 2 years ago. "I'm not mad, I'm just not okay pretending anymore." Another to Delphine, written the summer after she flaked on my restaurant's soft launch party. "Your absence was louder than any speech." And one to myself, just a line, blinking at the bottom, "Don't let them tell your story for you." I didn't delete them, but I didn't send them either. Sometimes truth just needs to exist, not perform. Later that morning, the phone rang. My father. Again. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but something in me, a soft, steady voice I'd learned to listen to, told me to answer. "Hello?" "Hey, sweetheart." His voice was cautious, almost shy. I saw the fundraiser photos. You looked solid." Solid. Not beautiful, not proud, just solid. I smiled anyway. He didn't wait for me to speak. "I'm sorry," he said, "not just for what happened, for letting it happen." For a moment, the line went silent. But not the bad kind, not the sharp, wounding kind. This one had weight, meaning. And for the first time in years, I didn't hang up early. We didn't solve anything. We didn't unwrite history. But we sat there, two people not pretending anymore. By mid-afternoon, I got the alert from Justine. "Delphine's moved to Colorado. No job updates. Her socials are blank. She went quiet." I nodded at the screen. Not in triumph, not in relief, just acknowledgement. Some people don't get better, they just get quiet. I blocked the last gossip tag with her name. I'd seen enough. 2 days later, I received an email from a tiny independent press. "We followed your venue story. Ever consider writing the version that's never been told?" I closed the email without replying, walked into my office, sat down in front of the archive I'd once feared to touch. Delphine June still sat there, untouched since the last transfer. Instead of opening it, I created a new folder beside it. I named it Archived, not erased. Sunday came soft and slow. I didn't check the news, didn't scroll. I made a cup of lavender tea, lit a candle, and opened a fresh journal. Not the one for rage, not the one for accounting. This one, for endings. I wrote at the top, "Not every ending needs closure. Some just need peace." And beneath that, this wasn't revenge. It was recovery. I closed the book, placed it on the table, and sat in silence. No text, no applause. Just the hum of the world moving on. And me, not chasing after it. I leaned back into the couch, arms folded behind my head, and exhaled deeply. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like freedom. I whispered, not to anyone, but to the space that had once been heavy. I didn't lose them. I just stopped asking to be kept. Sometimes healing doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It comes quietly, like the morning after a storm, when the air smells clean again. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Silence isn't weakness. Boundaries aren't betrayal, and love, real love, shouldn't cost you your dignity. I used to think that keeping the peace meant staying quiet, forgiving fast, and letting family walk over the parts of me they didn't want to understand. But peace that requires you to shrink? That's not peace. That's submission. So to anyone watching, whether you're the strong one in your family, the quiet one, or the one who's finally had enough, let me say this. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because you share blood. You deserve peace that doesn't come at your own expense. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you were taught never to give up on? Or maybe you stayed silent when you should have spoken. Tell me in the comments. Drop a 1 if this story touched something inside you. Or just share where you're watching from. I read every word. And hey, if you didn't like this video, I'd still love to hear why. That's what this space is for. Real stories, real people. If this story meant something to you, please consider subscribing. We've got more true stories coming about healing, hard choices, and holding your ground when it matters most. So hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Because the end, sometimes it's just the beginning.
My name is Donald, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a systems engineer. Due to certain circumstances, I changed jobs when I was 26, but my profession hasn't changed. I'm still a systems engineer. I just left the US, that's all. After graduating from college, I landed a job at an aita company, my first choice. It felt like a promising start to my career. I was motivated, my colleagues and superiors were kind, and the workplace had great communication. But I quit the company before even 3 years had passed. The reason? A woman named Lucy Matthews. Lucy was assigned to the same department as me when I started as a newbie. She had a unique presence and was beautiful, standing out in a world where cuteness was the norm. As we worked together, we grew closer and eventually started dating. I was shocked and overjoyed when Lucy confessed her feelings to me. I'm a plain guy, a nerd who struggles with stylish conversation, while Lucy was the center of attention at work, almost like a Madonna figure. She seemed out of my league, and even now, it feels like a miracle that she chose me. Lucy was well aware of her beauty and knew how to present herself. Embarrassingly, I was so afraid of her losing interest in me that I ended up being at her beck and call, always on edge. She quickly grew tired of me. Her last words still sting. You might be capable at work, but you're a failure as a man. Being with you, Donald, was just boring. I was crushed by the sudden breakup and those harsh words. It's not every day you get scolded so directly, especially by someone you love. It was tough, especially since Lucy, who had dumped me so cruelly, was still working right next to me. I couldn't take it anymore. Please don't laugh at me for running away. I was weak. So, I left the company I had dreamed of working for. Since then, I haven't been in touch with Lucy. On the day I resigned, she was on paid vacation. It's been 10 years since I quit. Now, I'm standing in front of the company building I once adored, and it feels like I'm reliving the emotions of my first year there. The truth is, I didn't just leave the company in a hurry. I also fled the US. In a small industry like ours, I thought it would be hard to face my former colleagues if I got another job, so I decided to go somewhere where no one knew me. Foreign companies are truly meritocratic, and I daringly left the US to test my skills. It turned out to be a great decision. Despite my struggles with social skills, I found a company that highly valued my expertise as a systems engineer. I immersed myself in cutting-edge technology, and before I knew it, a decade had flown by. I returned to this company because an old colleague reached out and asked me to come back. It was a rather forceful invitation, so I made a request. Initially, I wanted to be employed as a regular staff member. That was my condition. I'm confident this experience will be useful when I return to my original work. So, here I am, starting over as a new employee at 36. The department I was assigned to is the same as before, but the atmosphere has changed. The employees seem more reserved now. There used to be more freedom and a lively exchange of opinions. I wonder what's caused this shift. As I surveyed the floor from the entrance, I heard a familiar voice behind me say, "Coming back like this, you've got some thick skin." While surveying the floor from the entrance, I was spoken to from behind, a voice I couldn't forget. "It's not like I came back because I wanted to," I replied. Lucy, listening to my reply, snorted discontentedly. She had the same floral perfume scent as before. "Well, since you're an attorney, no matter who your former colleague is, no matter how old you are, you're a rookie here. You're at the very bottom. Don't forget that." Lucy, who said this arrogantly, had become an action manager. With Lucy in charge of this team, I became her subordinate. Lucy, confidently walking ahead with the clacking of her heels, was as confident as ever. What bothered me, however, was the attitude of my colleagues, who were her subordinates. They seemed to be holding back around her. I carefully surveyed my surroundings and followed behind Lucy. Lucy introduced me as a returning rookie. Despite running away from this company, I came back. She introduced me as if mocking me. "I'm Donald. Nice to meet you." When I greeted them, sparse applause broke out. When I was shown to my desk, I was surprised to see the one next to it. On the desk next to mine, there were 3 monitors, and in front of them, a small figure of a horse was displayed. Next to it was an eye massage and a shoulder-pounding stick. I could feel the strong presence. "What? Is there something wrong with my desk?" The one peering at me from below as she said this was a short, skinny girl. The inside of her wolf-cut hair was bleached white. The eyeliner around her eyes flared like a cat's. "Nice to meet you. I'm Emma Smith. Call me Emma." She stretched out her small right hand, full of rings, and I shook it back. Her hand was as small as an elementary school student's. As soon as Emma took her seat, she put on white headphones. After that, she began to work at an astonishing speed. Thinking that she might only be assigned simple tasks, I stealthily glanced at Emma's screen. I let out a surprised voice involuntarily. What Emma was getting done at an incredible speed was not simple work. She was solving intricate puzzles and codes with incredible speed. No doubt the ace of this department is Emma. I'm certain of it. "What's up? Interested in me?" Emma, who I thought was only looking at her monitor, said this without changing her gaze. Caught in the act of sneaking glances, I felt a bit guilty. "You can look at me more openly if you want." She turned her face towards me and smiled as she told me this with an upward glance and a smile. I could only respond with a grunt and scratch my head. By all means, feel free to compliment me. Being told this so refreshingly felt, well, refreshing. The atmosphere in the office had changed, but everyone's skills hadn't diminished. That gave me a sense of relief. That said, it seemed that Boss Lucy might be responsible for this change in atmosphere. On my first day as a system engineer, the task given to me was stapling documents. The only time I touched a computer was to check company emails. Lucy intentionally kept me away from computers. In other words, she only assigned me to do miscellaneous tasks. "Newbies make the coffee in this office. Since you, Donald, are the most recent and lowest in rank, please take care of the chores. Oh, and also, please make a lunch reservation for us." Saying that, Lucy left a stack of cards from restaurants at my desk. Seeing this, Emma gave a wry smile. She always does this to new people. "If there's anything you don't understand, just ask me. Okay, I've been through it too." Being encouraged by Emma, I couldn't help but smile wryly too. Being encouraged by a girl almost 10 years younger made me feel like I'd regressed to my pitiful past. "Thanks, that helps," I said as I bowed my head in thanks. She looked at me as if she discovered a rare creature. "W what? Is there something wrong?" I quickly checked myself, wondering if I'd spilled coffee on my shirt or something. I found nothing wrong. No, it's not that. It's just, it's rare to hear a grown man say he's grateful to a young girl. That is new for me. She quickly put her headphones back on and got back to work. I touched my cheek, worried that I might have appeared pathetic. A week had passed, and I still hadn't been given any proper work. Lucy began to pile up chores from other departments on my desk. It seemed like the tasks within our department weren't enough. Good morning, Mr. McKenna. Rubbing her sleepy eyes, Emma arrived at work just in time. She dumped her backpack on her desk and headed straight to the kitchen to make coffee. At that moment, I spotted something under my desk. I picked it up and was taken aback. It was a flamboyantly pink and blue bikini top. I hurriedly looked around. Luckily, no one seemed to notice that Emma's backpack was left half open on her desk. I picked up what had fallen out, but I wasn't sure what to do next. I thought about sneaking it back into her bag, but that would be tricky if Emma came back while I was doing it. As I was trying to figure out my next move, Emma's voice, tinged with a sigh, reached my ears. Without thinking, I jumped up from my chair and looked up. Emma was standing there with a teasing gaze that made my heart flutter. I saw a side of her that was rarely shown, so feminine and gentle. This was on the floor, I stammered, handing her the item. Emma leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "Reality is 100 times cuter than imagination." Her breath was warm against my hair, and I slid off the chair, overwhelmed by the strong scent of her perfume. Emma's perfume was subtle when we sat next to each other, but up close, it became alluring. My heart raced as I realized I was being teased by someone so much younger. It made me feel less confident. "I'm going to a night pool with friends today. Thanks for picking this up for me," Emma said, extending her hand. Lost in thought, I first handed her the swimsuit and then took her hand to get up. "It's not safe for a young girl to go to a night pool dressed like that. Isn't it a bad idea?" I said, sounding like a worried father. Emma looked at me, confused, and then burst into laughter. "I've never heard that from my own parents," she said, still laughing. Embarrassed, I mumbled, "Give me a break. If you're worried, Miss McKenna, I won't go. But I expect a reward in return." She pushed the swimsuit into my pocket and laughed. I was captivated by Emma's mischievous smile. It was clear she was a charming little devil. After this day, Emma and I became much closer. It felt like she had me wrapped around her finger. When Emma showed up for dinner instead of going to the night pool, I was breathless. She had a different aura, her loosely tied hair, a black mini dress with Dr. Martens boots, and cherry blossom-colored lips made her look both melancholic and sexy. "I'm lucky to be at such a fancy restaurant," Emma said softly. She laughed helplessly, and I found myself chuckling too. "Do you have any food allergies or dislikes?" I asked. She replied, "No, I don't," though she seemed a bit overwhelmed by the setting. When I finished ordering, Emma looked at me with admiration. "You speak French? That's impressive," she said, clearly surprised. I told her about my experiences working abroad, and she asked a barrage of questions, making us pause our meal several times. I was happy she was so interested, so I shared things I had never told anyone before. Emma reacted with laughter and surprise at each new revelation. "Let me hear about you, Miss Smith," I said. She insisted, "Call me Emma. If you don't, I won't respond." I nervously called her Emma, and she responded with a smile and a tilt of her head that nearly knocked me off my feet. That night, I learned a lesson. I was no match for her charm. The next day, Lucy, whom I ran into in the hallway, teased me loudly, "Looks like you've got a thing for younger girls now. Wasn't it me you were infatuated with before?" Her comment made everyone around us whisper and glance in my direction. I was taken aback. "I thought you'd be married and retired by now. That's why I returned to this company. I didn't expect you to be still on the market. In my words, Lucy's face turned bright red. The whispers around us grew louder. Lucy had already started spreading stories of my past among my colleagues. I had once come across her animatedly sharing stories of how I used to be head over heels for her. While it's true that I was infatuated with Lucy, I'm not ashamed of it. However, her exaggerations and smug way of narrating irked me. Being able to pay her back a bit felt somewhat refreshing. What's still on the market? That's rude. It's just that I haven't met a man who's worthy of me. Stop making fun of me. Lucy raised her voice in protest. Apparently, she is in a close relationship at the moment. She rambled on about her partner, a high flyer in the industry, being more wonderful than any men in our company. Although no one had asked, it seemed like she didn't want people to think she was single. It's typical Lucy, who's always had a boyfriend without a break. There's no doubt she has someone now, but when it comes to marriage, men look at different aspects of a woman, whether living together would be enjoyable or tiresome. In other words, while Lucy is popular but not married, she's great as a girlfriend but not suitable for marriage. The current situation demonstrates that clearly. Well, that's the thing. Don't compare me with someone who can only handle young girls. Leaving behind such a dismissive remark, the visibly annoyed Lucy stormed off. I watched as she took out her anger on her subordinates while she left. Oh, Lucy's boyfriend? Yeah, I know him. He's from the development department of our rival company. He's really cheesy and, well, creepy. During lunch break, Emma and I were nibbling on some sweet bread at our adjacent desks when I asked about Lucy's boyfriend. Emma gave a rather disgusted look as she filled me in about the man. The fact that she herself had been hit on by him seemed to disgust her to her core, which I found amusing and couldn't help but chuckle. It's not funny. I think that guy is a schemer. He even tried to talk me into transferring and suggested I bring some information as a gift. The conversation quickly took a grim turn. What do you mean by that? I stopped nibbling on the pastry. Exactly what it sounds like. That man is trying every trick in the book to steal our development information. Emma crumpled up her bread bag and, with a dangerous smile, delivered her words. Given the circumstances, it appeared that Lucy was his current target. From what I gathered today, Lucy seemed quite smitten with him. I could only hope that my bad feeling wouldn't turn out to be true. I know who you really are, Donald said, nonchalantly revealing my secret as she looked at her computer monitor. What, you're joking, right? The words slipped out of my mouth, to which Emma gave a wicked grin. On her computer screen was my confidential transfer order, which hadn't been disclosed publicly. She seemed to have effortlessly bypassed the HR computer security and discovered the truth. She confessed she had been suspicious from the start and seemed to have noticed me reading the program source code displayed on her computer monitor. Nobody in this department can read code like you can. I knew right away you were not just an ordinary Joe. I was left scratching my head, my cover blown. Now, shall we swiftly drain the puss and make this workplace more pleasant? Emma said in a mockingly polite tone, her face plastered with the mischievous grin she often wore. Roger that, I conceded, throwing up my hands in surrender. I decided to dive straight into the harsh treatment. I was able to catch the tail of the information leak quite easily. Lucy had always been careless. There were traces of her habits, even in the program source code. She had copied the program of a recently developed system, and there were traces of her attempting to take it outside the company. More precisely, traces of her attempt to erase evidence of her actions were clearly left behind. Others might have overlooked it, but not me. Instead of making a public spectacle, we agreed to handle this matter discreetly and consult with HR. There was also a slight degree of past compassion involved. There's no way that was Lucy's reaction when called by the boss and informed about the leak. Furthermore, she reputedly suggested that Emma might be the culprit if there was a leak. Her basis was that Emma disrespects me, her section manager, a clear personal grudge. This conversation took place the day I met with my boss. Unusually, Luke, who usually leaves work on time, was staying late. Both Emma and I often work overtime. Emma prefers to wrap up her work at a good stopping point before heading home, while I typically get caught up in miscellaneous tasks. I occasionally glanced over at Lucy, who was unusually glued to her computer. I suspected she was staying behind with some ulterior motive. "Are you guys not leaving yet? You're wasting electricity." Lucy yells at us from afar. Her voice carries a sharp edge of impatience. I can feel Lucy's anxiety as if I could touch it. She must be trying to cover up all her wrongdoings. But all the access codes have been rewritten by my coworker Emma. Someone else might have been able to crack it, but breaking through a system that Emma has constructed is impossible for Lucy. Even from RC, we can hear Lucy's screaming. The next moment, a loud alarm blares from Lucy's computer, signaling an emergency. She's fallen into the trap I've set. Upon hearing the noise, the security guard rushes into the floor. Employees who had been working overtime in other departments also gather around. I didn't do anything. It just started going off by itself. It's a bug. A bug. Who the hell programmed this? Lucy stands up, pointing at her computer. The alarm continues. Then Emma steps smoothly to the computer and silences the alarm in an instant. As soon as the noise stops, Lucy's face relaxes. In the next moment, she points at Emma and starts yelling. "This is your doing. You're the one who leaked the information too, aren't you? You set up this trap because you didn't want me investigating you." Lucy doesn't get to finish her sentence because the boss shows himself among the gawkers. "Lucy, this isn't a good look. You are the main culprit behind the data leak, aren't you? Falling into this trap is proof of that." The boss explains to Lucy that all the evidence was gathered in my internal investigation. Lucy chokes and looks at me. "You're lying. Donald doesn't have these skills. What could a good-for-nothing errand boy do?" Lucy glares at me, then rounds on the boss. The boss sighs in exasperation. "Donald, I'm glad we followed your plan. I never expected to catch such a big fish." Lucy looks at me dumbfounded as the boss speaks to me amicably. She clearly hadn't expected that I was working with the boss. Donald is a talent we invited to our company as a supervisor. He's my right-hand man whom I brought in from England. At the boss's words, Lucy is stunned into silence. "We'll notify you of your punishment later. For now, go home and refrain from work until we get in touch." Upon hearing the boss's words, Lucy collapses on the spot. Later, Lucy gets transferred to a small branch office in Nebraska. I end up taking over Lucy's position. Emma complained about her desk being moved away from mine, but there's nothing that could be done about that. Although the ending left a sour taste in our mouths, the atmosphere at work changed completely. I think it's getting closer to how it was when I was around. A workplace with a good flow of communication where lively and candid exchanges of opinion are possible and performance quickly starts to improve. Everyone on the floor acknowledges that Emma is contributing to this change. I think we can continue to work together like this forever. That's what I was leisurely thinking, but Emma isn't someone who would settle here. A year later, she receives an offer to study abroad in Japan, bringing home the latest technology and information. That is her mission. The company is covering all the expenses for her study abroad. She had absolutely no reason to refuse. When this conversation came up, I was shaken. We never openly acknowledged it, but we consider each other as lovers. I lack the capacity to cheerfully wave goodbye as my irreplaceable partner sets off across the sea. How can I make her stay? That's all I could think about. Even when I'm with Emma, all I can do is contemplate how to make her stay in the U.S., making it impossible to enjoy our time. Should I propose marriage as a last resort? I'm disgusted by myself for even considering such a low method. Emma laughs as if she sees right through my thoughts. "Hey, are you going to be lonely if I go to study abroad?" Emma, who has always been one step ahead of me, stops and turns to look at me. Of course I'll be lonely, that's a given. Emma chuckles happily on hearing my reply. I thought this was the only moment to mention marriage. Just when I gathered my courage and tried to voice it, Emma's slender finger touched my lips. No, not now. When I come back from Japan, then you can move on me. I'll say yes right away. Emma looks at me with unusually serious eyes. After she finishes her sentence, she gives me a soft smile. I raise both my hands in a surrendering pose. I've never won against Emily anyway. I get it. I promise. And so, I sent her off. 4 years later, I'm waiting for Emma at JFK Airport. It's not like me, but I've prepared a bouquet of flowers. I've had my opening line decided since 4 years ago. Welcome back. Will you marry me? My heart feels like it's about to leap out of my mouth. The electronic display announces the arrival of Emma's flight. It's only a little longer. In a little while, a new chapter of our story will begin. Of course, the ending is planned to be a happy one. How did you find today's story? Your subscription and likes will be an encouragement for my content creation. I look forward to your comments. See you in the next video. John, please, just once is enough. When my first love begged me like that, I couldn't turn her down. But I need to be honest, I'm not experienced in this. For my entire 32 years, I've had no experience in love. Who would have thought someone like me would be asked to take on such a big task by the stunningly beautiful Emma? I'm John Miller, a single man turning 32 this year. After graduating from university, I started working for a medical device manufacturer, where I'm still employed. I've always been good with computers and wanted to use those skills at work. Recently, though, I was transferred from an administrative role to sales. My boss said it's good to have experience in different departments, but honestly, I wasn't happy about it. I've never been good at socializing and felt I'd perform better in an administrative role. This job change seems to ignore the principle of putting the right person in the right place. Plus, there's a male coworker named Alex in the same department who always seems to have it out for me, making the environment uncomfortable. John, you're really useless. Your sales performance won't improve if you keep that gloomy face, Alex would say, scoffing at me. He's highly educated, handsome, and consistently a top performer in sales. Sales is simple. Just keep talking and you'll sell. I can't understand why you can't do such a simple thing, he'd laugh. Alex even has a CPA qualification and is truly talented. Everyone agrees he'll likely become a company executive someday. In contrast, I haven't been able to achieve good results in my department, and it's disheartening to see such a big difference between us, even though we're the same age. Feeling more down than I expected, I decided to visit the municipal library on my next day off. It's been a while since I came here. This library was a special place where I used to spend a lot of time when I was in elementary school. The wooden building is old, but it has a deep charm, and it made me reminisce about the past. I made many memories in this municipal library with my first love. In 3rd grade, I was surprised when my hand touched a girl's as I was trying to pick up a book. It seems we were trying to pick up the same book at the same time. The girl was Emma, who had just transferred to my class. So I was even more surprised. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's my fault, she said. But I was surprised. I didn't expect to meet you here, John. Me neither. I rarely see other classmates in this library. As we were talking, a librarian who was passing by looked at us. If we continued to chat in the library, we might get told off. Thinking this, I decided to invite Emma to go outside. Normally, I wouldn't feel like this, but I wanted to talk more. I was worried she might refuse, but Emma gave me a gentle smile and said sure. So, we sat on a bench outside the library. Feeling like this was a bit like a date, and it made my heart pound. But that's a secret. Emma confided in me, honestly, I don't really want to go to school. Why? Well, I'm overweight, right? I was bullied at my previous school because of that, and even now, I don't have anyone I can call a friend. I sympathize with Emma's story. I'm also not good at communication and don't have many friends. Me too. I honestly find it hard to go to school. This is the first time I've been able to talk honestly with someone like this, so I'm kind of happy. When I said this, Emma replied, "Me too." Looking back now, I think that was the moment when a friendship was born between us. We naturally became friends and met frequently at the local public library. We certainly had conversations at school, but if we were too close there, we risked becoming the target of teasing with people saying, "Are those two dating?" We both wanted to avoid that, so we kept a certain distance from each other. Over time, Emma also made a few female friends. Her modest and gentle nature probably made the other girls feel close to her. I'm really glad Emma made friends. For some reason, even though it wasn't about me, I was happy to see Emma enjoying herself. When we first met, we were both too young to understand the concept of love. But as the grades went on, I began to realize that my feelings for Emma were special. Emma and I have the same taste in books, and just talking to her is a real joy. Even though I was full of complexes and often felt suffocated in school life, the time I spent with Emma gave me the energy to live. I hoped this time would continue forever. That was my strong wish, but when we became middle schoolers, that dream was sadly shattered. In fact, two changes occurred for Emma and me when we entered middle school. The first was that we, who had always been in the same class, were separated when we entered middle school. Because the class composition remained the same for the 3 years of middle school, we were thrown apart. The other change, to the surprise of both me and those around me, was that Emma had transformed into a very beautiful girl. Upon entering middle school, she had been a bit chubby until then, but she became slender all at once. Even the boys who had not noticed her charm before began to make a fuss over her. Isn't Emma just the cutest? She's also top of the class. I really admire her. Watching Emma become the object of everyone's affection, I had mixed feelings. I'd always thought Emma was cute, even when she was chubby. She'd always been self-conscious about it, so seeing her gain confidence was a good thing. However, seeing Emma becoming more popular and more unattainable, I was hit with the fear that our time together was coming to an end. Sure enough, when we got to middle school, the studies got tougher, and with the added pressure of extracurricular activities, we both became busier. The frequent visits to the public library that we used to enjoy in elementary school became a thing of the past. But still, we managed to arrange a meeting at the public library and had a great time. We haven't had much time to hang out since starting middle school, have we? Yeah, and we're not even in the same class anymore. It feels weird, but we should try and come back here when we have some time. With those words, Emma gave me a warm smile. Our friendship was forever. I felt relieved thinking that, but soon enough, my feelings were shattered. "John, can I talk to you for a sec?" One day during break, I was suddenly called out by a guy in my class named Jack, which surprised me. Jack was good-looking, the ace of the soccer team, and one of the top guys in the school's social hierarchy. What could he possibly want with me? As Jack led me behind the school building, he suddenly grabbed me by the collar. Confused and not knowing what was happening, Jack spoke to me in a harsh tone. "You've been hanging around the public library waiting for Emma, huh? I've got my eye on her, so don't try anything funny." Listening to Jack's words, I was shocked. It seemed someone had seen Emma and me meeting at the public library. I tried to defend myself, but Jack was not in the mood to listen. "Do you really think someone like Emma would give a guy like you the time of day? Know your place, man." With that, Jack let me go, and I fell to the ground. Jack walked away as if nothing had happened. I was left sitting there, stunned and shocked by what had just happened. A school hero like Jack was interested in Emma. In such a situation, It felt absurd for me to ask Emma for friendship. Emma was always kind to me, but I couldn't help but feel that, deep down, she may have been annoyed. That night, I cried myself to sleep, my mind filled with thoughts. From then on, I stopped trying to interact with Emma. I used to pass by Emma's classroom and go to the public library whenever I could, but I stopped all that to keep my distance from her. The school was full of students, so naturally, the interaction between Emma and me decreased dramatically. We passed each other in the hallway from time to time, but we stopped greeting each other. Although I felt lonely, I accepted the situation. Emma's father was a practicing doctor, and she was a true lady and the school's princess. There was no way she and I could ever be together. If that's the case, it's better to give up before my feelings of affection become any stronger. And so, my first love quietly came to an end. Since then, I never dated any woman. Heck, I didn't even fall in love with anyone else. I grew older, all the while remaining utterly unacquainted with love. Still, it's undeniable that even now, I can't forget my gentle feelings for Emma. People might laugh at me for still carrying that adolescent crush from middle school, but the feelings I never expressed and kept sealed away never faded in me, even as I became an adult. With these bittersweet memories of Emma, I decided to visit the city library, where an unexpected event occurred. Shockingly, Emma was at the library. Our eyes met, and we froze for a moment. Neither of us ever expected to reunite in such a place. Even though I thought I would never see her again, 17 years since our last meeting, Emma had become even more beautiful. While I was still frozen in surprise, Emma slowly approached and began to speak. You're John, right? Yes, I am. What a surprise meeting here. Me too. Should we change places? Everyone is kind of paying attention to us. Just as Emma said this, other library patrons were staring at us because we looked so surprised. So we decided to talk outside. Somehow, this felt nostalgic. I ended up having tea with Emma at a nearby coffee shop. I never thought I'd be having a one-on-one conversation with Emma. As we were chatting, suddenly, Emma started with a troubled expression. I think I can ask you, John. You see, I'm being forced into marriage. What? I was surprised by Emma's unexpected proposal. You see, I'm currently working as a nurse at my father's clinic, and a supplier who visits there regularly has been making a pass at me. My father, seeing me single and without a boyfriend, is insisting that I should marry the supplier. But I absolutely don't want to. That sounds tough. So, John, please pretend to be my boyfriend just once. What? I was surprised by Emma's unexpected proposal. Who would have thought I'd be asked to play the role of Emma's boyfriend? When I was trying to reject the man's proposal, I impulsively lied that I had a boyfriend. But he's so insistent and wants to meet the boyfriend. Even my father is telling me to introduce him. I'm really in trouble. But John, please, just once. Looking into her moist eyes, I couldn't refuse my first love's request. I get it, but I don't have much experience with this, so I might not be good at it. Thank you. If you were sitting next to me, it's fine. I'll do all the explaining to him. And so, I ended up agreeing to play the role of Emma's boyfriend. The following Sunday, the venue was the lounge of a hotel where the man who proposed to Emma was supposed to come. As I was ironing my shirt to wear to the lounge, I had mixed feelings. I was happy to reunite with Emma, and happy that she relied on me, but I wondered why such a beauty like her was single and not dating anyone. If Emma were as beautiful as she is, she should have many other male friends. So why did she choose me? I spent the day with these questions in my heart, but there was another twist waiting for me. Surprisingly, the person who showed up at the lounge with Emma was my colleague, Alex. Why is John here? Even Alex looked surprised and turned to me. Can it be that you two know each other? Know each other? This guy's my colleague. Saying so, Alex glared at me. Even as we faced each other in the lounge, Alex didn't bother to hide his irritation and was quite dismissive. Why did you, Emma, end up dating John? Actually, we're old childhood friends. That's how we naturally started dating. That's suspicious. I work with John, but I never saw any signs of him having a girlfriend. Alex said, looking at us suspiciously. Emma made up a story, but it seemed like Alex saw right through it. Could it be, Emma, you wanted to turn down my proposal, so you asked John for help? No, that's not true. But you two, despite supposedly being lovers, are distant. No matter how I look at it, you don't match. Upon hearing Alex's words, old memories flashed back. During middle school, the words showered by Jack echoed in my mind. Emma is a lady, very beautiful, but John is a complete loser. No matter how I see it, there is no way Emma could love John. Stop putting him down any further. Not expecting Emma to raise her voice, Alex and I were surprised and looked at her. Emma's cheeks reddened, her eyes watered, and she trembled. Alex, John is a wonderful man, more than you think. I love John, and I won't allow anyone to insult him, even if it's just acting. To think Emma would defend me, I was touched. Alex opened his mouth, looking uncomfortable. Got it, Emma. I'll give up on you. You two enjoy yourselves. Saying that, Alex got up from his seat with a displeased look and left the lounge with incredible speed. As Emma still had tears in her eyes, I suggested we leave as well and decided to let her cool down in a nearby park. I sat her down on a bench and handed her a handkerchief. Emma, thanks for defending me. That was quite the performance. It wasn't an act, Emma said, surprised by our words. My eyes widened as Emma began to speak. I've always liked John since long ago. When we got to middle school, I felt like I was being avoided, so I thought I had to give up. But I couldn't like anyone else but John. The reason I asked you to act as my boyfriend this time is because I really wanted to be connected with you in some way. Upon hearing Emma's words, I was struck with a huge shock. Could it be that Emma felt the same way about me? I decided now was the time to tell her how I really felt, and I opened my mouth. I'm sorry, Emma, for avoiding you. But the truth is, I've always had feelings for you. But why did you avoid me then? Because you became so beautiful. I thought I wasn't good enough. That doesn't matter. You were the only one who was kind to me, even when I was overweight. Actually, I started dieting because I wanted you, John, to like me. 17 years passed since that misunderstanding, but it was now cleared up all at once. We laughed together, and before we knew it, we were in a strong embrace. It was a passionate embrace that seemed to fill the 17-year gap. I won't ever let you go. Emma, thank you. We've had a big misunderstanding, haven't we? Yes, but don't worry. We have much more time ahead of us. That's how we officially started dating and got married a year later. I quit my job on this occasion and started working in the administration department at Emma's family hospital. Emma's dad congratulated us on our marriage. When we got married, I had a conversation like this with Emma's dad. I can trust you, John, to take care of Emma. Thank you. After losing my wife and having to raise Emma by myself, I felt quite rushed. I once recommended she marry Alex, who used to visit us often, but I guess I need to be more discerning. I never expected him to get fired. That's right. Alex, after being turned down by Emma, either out of desperation or recklessness, approached many women at his other clients, which led to numerous complaints, and he ended up losing his job. The important thing is not how others see you, but how you two feel about each other. You and Emma truly love each other, so I'm sure you'll make a good couple. I think so too, because we're not connected by appearances or status. We're deeply connected by our inner selves. That's why, no matter what happens, I'm confident I will always love this woman who was my first love. I reconnected with a girl I had broken up with back in school after an incident. When I saw her again, she had a scar on her face. Reconnecting with her, despite that scar, changed my life in ways I never imagined. I'm Mason Moore, 28 years old, and 6 months ago, my fiancée dumped me. We were in the middle of planning our wedding when she called it off. The reason? Scandalous infidelity. But she didn't even consider it infidelity. She claimed, "My love for him is real." During our conversations, she sobbed, asking, "Do you really love me? I don't feel any love from you, Mason." I couldn't bring myself to respond. I thought I loved Camila, but when I found out about her infidelity and our engagement fell apart, I didn't cry. I didn't beg her to stay. I wasn't devastated to the point where I lost my appetite. I had decided to marry her mostly because it felt like the right time, given my age. When she broke up with me, all I said was, "I understand. Please take care of the compensation and the wedding cancellation fee." In response, Camila threw a glass of water at me and yelled, "You're the worst, trash, inhuman." But wasn't I the one who got dumped? I almost said that out loud but held back, knowing it would only make things worse. I've had other relationships, but they all ended the same way. "You don't really love me, do you? Do you even want to be in a relationship?" I've heard that a lot, and I understand now that the problem isn't with them. It's with me. I've never been able to forget my high school love. That love was Nora Anderson. She wasn't stunningly beautiful, but she had big eyes and the cutest dimples when she smiled. She was always cheerful and surrounded by friends, while I was just an ordinary high school guy, not particularly energetic, but not gloomy either. Nora and I got close during a school event where we were assigned to work together. Through our conversations, I found out she, like me, came from a single-parent household. Back then, I was in a rebellious phase and often clashed with my mother, blaming her for our financial struggles. But Nora was different. She deeply cared for her mother and believed that supporting each other was just part of life, even if it was tough. Talking to Nora made me feel childish for being rebellious. As I spent more time with her, my attitude towards my mother softened and the tension between us eased. My resentment and anger faded, and being with Nora made me feel lighter. We were together from the end of our freshman year until our senior year of high school. I thought we'd always be together, maybe even get married someday. But we broke up right before exams. If one of us had found someone else, or if we had simply grown apart, I might have moved on. But there was a reason for our breakup that I just couldn't accept. So maybe that's why I can't forget about Nora, even 10 years later, after becoming a working adult. I heard from a high school friend that Nora had married an elite businessman and was a stay-at-home wife. I was relieved that she was happy, but I remember feeling empty because I was the only one still hung up on Nora. But now, at 28, I can't keep in touch with her, see her, or talk to her. I thought that my unresolved feelings for her would continue to smolder in my heart. It was on an afternoon when the company was closed that things changed. I had spent the whole morning living a lazy life and finally got out of bed in the early afternoon. I took my suit to the dry cleaners, but since it was a weekday, my usual dry cleaner was closed for the day. I had no particular preference for that store, so I visited a different dry cleaner than usual. As I stood in front of the register, I stopped in my tracks when I saw the clerk. Though she was wearing a mask, her eyes and features looked just like my high school sweetheart, Nora, whom I had parted ways with. But surely, after 10 years, I wouldn't expect to randomly bump into her. I assumed that I had only thought it was Nora because I had been reminiscing about our high school days and saw a woman who resembled her. But then I saw Nora's name clearly written on her name tag. Our eyes met, and I was sure. "Nora, is that you?" Nora nodded slightly in response to my question. Even with her mask on, I could see her eyes narrowing as she smiled. "Mason, long time, no see." Her laughter and voice were unmistakably Nora's. My unforgettable first love. But Nora still had the same last name as in high school, and there was no ring on her left hand. However, I knew that suddenly asking, "Did you get divorced?" would be incredibly rude. "Nora, what are you doing here?" "I work here. Dry cleaning. Can I take it?" Realizing I had been staring at Nora while holding onto my suit, I finally handed it over. Nora took the suit and processed it. All the while, she carried the conversation for me, who couldn't say a word. "Nice suit. You must work for a great company. Wow, Mason, you've grown up." "I'm just a regular office worker." "Do you live around here?" "I'm about a 10-minute walk away. I live nearby too." Talking to Nora for the first time in 10 years was a bit nerve-wracking. Though her appearance was that of a mature and beautiful woman, her way of speaking was as bright and lively as during our student days. That's what I had loved about her. I wanted to ask her various things, but unfortunately, another customer arrived. I was just a customer at a dry cleaning place, so I had to leave without getting in Nora's way. Noticing my downcast expression, Nora waved to me and said, "The reunion, you coming?" I wasn't planning to go, but I heard our old teacher is retiring, so I think I should go since he helped me out so much. I immediately jumped at the opportunity. I had initially planned to skip the reunion, but my close friends had insisted that I come this time, so I reluctantly agreed. "I'm going to the reunion too." At the sound of my loud voice, Nora chuckled. "Then let's talk more at that time." I nodded and quickly left the dry cleaner. I had heard that Nora hadn't attended the reunions before, and even this time, the organizer said she would be absent. I had given up on ever seeing her again, but I was overjoyed at the prospect of meeting and talking to her again. The day of the reunion arrived, and Nora came to the venue still wearing a mask. I had thought she might have had a cold when I saw her at the dry cleaner, but I wondered why she was still wearing a mask that day. I was watching Nora from a distance, but she noticed me looking and waved at me. I thought this was my chance to talk to Nora and approached her, but there was someone who spoke to Nora before me, Natalie Jackson, wearing a flashy colored dress. Natalie had always dyed her hair and wore short skirts, even in her student days, and that vibe hadn't changed as an adult. Grinning, Natalie spoke to Nora in an exaggeratedly loud voice. "Nora, what's with that mask? Could that rumor actually be true?" I could hear the sarcasm in her voice. Ever since her school days, Natalie had a nasty habit of speaking ill of others or belittling the popular girl, Nora, in the class. But this time, I was really curious about the rumor Natalie was talking about. The classmates around us were whispering too. Looking at the crowd, Natalie said with satisfaction, "Did you all hear? Nora, she divorced her elite businessman husband. Here she was, enjoying the rich life with her wealthy husband, and now she's been dumped, right?" I was enraged by her spiteful tone. This was not something to talk about in front of everyone. I approached Natalie and spoke up. "Hey, stop it. Don't talk about someone's personal life in front of so many people." Natalie glared at me, seemingly annoyed that I had defended Nora. "What's the big deal? It's the truth. My boyfriend works at the same company as Nora's ex-husband. It seems to be the talk of the office. Apparently, Nora's ex-husband is lamenting. He feels like he paid for defective goods by having such a disappointing wife. If that was true, then her ex-husband was a real jerk too. No matter the reason for the divorce, spreading it around the company and among acquaintances is just wrong. Divorced and broke, living in poverty. What's with that mask? Can't afford makeup." Saying this, Natalie fiercely removed Nora's mask. "Stop it." Nora tried to turn away, but it was too late. Natalie had taken off her mask. But the next moment, silence enveloped the room. Even Natalie, the person who had taken off the mask, was at a loss for words. Looking beneath Nora's mask, there was a large scar running from Nora's cheek to her ear, a thin and long elongated scar like a cut. Whether it was due to time or makeup, the scar had blended in with her skin color, but it couldn't be completely hidden. "What's with that scar? It's disgusting, Natalie murmured. The people around didn't openly raise their voices, but they were clearly disturbed. I couldn't bear it, so I grabbed Nora's hand and took her to the balcony. When we reached the empty balcony, Nora looked at me and said, "Thank you." Honestly, it was uncomfortable being in that room, but I guess everyone would be shocked to see such a scar. Nora said this as she put her mask back on. It didn't suit Nora to say such a thing in a self-deprecating way, and it made me a little sad. "Can I ask about that scar?" "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to." Nora then told me about her married life. The man she married became abusive after they were wed. It was a daily occurrence for him to say things that would put Nora down, and it seems that she was constantly being told things that would negate her character. But Nora endured it for years, having only a high school education and being a full-time housewife. She was worried about her financial independence. During this time, her mother's illness worsened, and she collapsed. Though her mother was dependent on her boyfriend and seemed helpless when Nora was in high school, Nora's mother had turned her life around after becoming ill. She had worked hard, and together they supported each other. But even after being hospitalized, her condition didn't improve, and she passed away. "I'm sorry for all the trouble until now, but I want you to be happy." Those were Nora's mother's last words. Hearing them, Nora decided to divorce, for her mother's wish for her happiness gave her the push she needed. The scar was inflicted by her husband when she brought up the divorce. Thinking about all of Nora's hardships made me incredibly sad. But seeing me like that, Nora lightly tapped my back. "Don't look so down. I'm happy to be free now that I'm divorced, just like Mom wanted. I'm looking for happiness. I don't have the courage yet, but I have a goal to someday take off this mask and walk proudly." Seeing that intense look in Nora's eyes, I remembered the time we parted ways in high school. Nora's mom was the type who depended on her boyfriend. Nora always came second to her, and she often ended up giving her money to men. But Nora managed her mother's earnings and even worked part-time jobs, trying hard to save up for college application fees. However, just before the exam, she found out that her mother had spent the money meant for the exams. At about the same time, her mother's illness was discovered, and Nora's mom was dumped by the boyfriend she had been financially supporting. Despite having such a terrible mother, Nora said she would give up on her exams and work to support her mother. Of course, I was totally against it. "That mother of yours is awful. Just leave her." I remember saying that. I thought she should just leave her mother, live alone, save some money, and go to college, even if she had to take out student loans. But Nora didn't abandon her mother. "She's my only family," she said. I understood how Nora felt, but I just couldn't agree with her. Looking back, I realized how childish I was. I was so dazzled by Nora's efforts to support her family and felt so inferior because I couldn't do anything that Nora and I grew apart, and we eventually broke up. As my high school memories faded, the 28-year-old Nora in front of me took off her mask. A scar was revealed under the mask. Under the mask, it's quite something, isn't it? I looked back into Nora's eyes firmly. "Yeah, but this here is even more amazing," I said, pointing to Nora's heart. "You're still as strong as you were in school, if not stronger. You've supported your family, found the courage to escape from violence, and you're still looking forward, even though you've been hurt." Nora smiled, looking a little shy at my words. "Thank you, but you're the same, aren't you, Mason?" I didn't understand what Nora meant, so I waited for her next words. "You were kind even back in school, Mason. Remember when you defended me from my friends when they teased me about my mom? And just now, you were the only one to take me away when people were talking about my scar. You have always been kind, Mason." It was the first time I realized that there was kindness in me. I had thought of myself as an indecisive guy who was neither serious about work nor love. I never even considered that I could be kind to others. "I remember when we were dating in school," Nora continued, We used to hold hands a lot. Do you remember? Of course I remembered. Nora and I used to share our anxieties and little joys and happiness by holding hands. I gently held Nora's hand. Her hand was just as small and white as it had been 10 years ago. I almost cried at the warmth I felt after 10 years, but I held back. I told Nora about my current situation, holding her hand, that I couldn't get serious about love or work, that I was living without any goals. That's why my engagement was called off. I wasn't looking for advice or comfort. I just wanted Nora to listen. I wanted her to know who I am now, even if it meant only exposing my pathetic self. After listening, Nora smiled a little. You're still careless when it comes to yourself. Let me, your first girlfriend, tell you something good. I nodded, enchanted by Nora's smile. You, Mason, can work harder and have more fun when you think of others rather than yourself. So how about trying hard for me from now on? I thought I'd like to be together with you again after our reunion, Mason. What do you think? We had somehow understood each other's feelings since we held hands. I love you, Nora. I've loved you all these 10 years. Nora blushed at my confession. Then work hard to be with me. Will you love me seriously? As for work, I want you, Mason, to be devoted to a job you're passionate about. Living a self-indulgent life is a waste. Let's think about our future so that we can live our lives laughing together. I nodded at those words. From now on, my life won't be alone, and just thinking that made me feel somehow optimistic. From that day, Nora and I started dating again. The first thing we did was job hunting. I had been aimlessly doing a job I didn't want to do, and at work, there was my former fiancé. I didn't really care and continued working as I was, but I wanted to make a break from the unmotivated days and life I had been living. Although the salary was a bit lower at my new job, I found a sense of purpose. Since starting dating with Nora, my private life also became fulfilling. Before, on my days off, I used to shut myself in without even opening the curtains, but I began to go out more by accompanying Nora in her hobby of hiking. I even gained a little muscle and became interested in healthy eating. 2 years after we started dating, Nora and I got married, and now we have a child and live together as a family of 3. Nora's facial scars have faded, and she's not wearing a mask now. Her emotional scars have healed, and she's enjoying raising our child. Recently, I received a report from Nora that she's pregnant with our second child. I want to make a lively and fun family, don't I? Looking at Nora's smiling face, I naturally smiled too. She keeps bringing me happiness one after another, but I don't just want to be happy. I want to be someone who can make her happy too. Before I reunited with Nora, I couldn't imagine such happy days. Our reunion changed my life. I want to cherish the happy times with my family without forgetting my gratitude to her. How was today's story? Your channel subscription and hitting the like button will be an encouragement for our creative activities. We look forward to receiving comments from you. See you in the next video. The woman I met at a group blind date was a doctor, someone everyone around her expected great things from. But despite her qualifications, she seemed inexperienced and lacked confidence. She froze in moments where quick decisions were needed. Being a doctor myself, I felt compelled to step in and help her out so she wouldn't let her friends down. My name's Jack. I'm 32 years old and also a doctor. Even at this age, I've never been the subject of gossip. Sure, I've had relationships, but work always came first, leading to breakups. Most of my exes complained that I didn't give them enough attention. By my late 20s, I realized I might be more suited for work than romance. Early on, I felt a bit empty seeing everyone around me getting married and having kids, but now I'm able to separate myself from all that. I focus on work and study every day, driven by the desire to save as many patients as I can. My family back home is pretty laid back, so there's no pressure about marriage. I'm thankful for the environment I'm in, and all I could think about was becoming self-sufficient as soon as possible. So when old high school buddy invited me to a mixer, I wasn't interested. I was going to decline, but they were one person short and really needed me to fill in. Reluctantly, I agreed. My plan was simple: show up, make an appearance, and then leave. I didn't even bother dressing up when I left the house and headed to the meetup spot. "Hey everyone, long time no see," I said as I arrived, realizing I was the last one there. Seeing old friends after so long put a smile on my face. Becoming an adult meant we didn't see each other often, so reuniting with them at this group date was a pleasant surprise. Even though I wasn't keen on going at first, that moment of reunion made me glad I came. We caught up with old stories and updates on the way to the restaurant, and it felt like we were back in our college days. I was having such a good time that I almost forgot the main purpose of the evening. We got seated and waited a few minutes for the women to arrive. The mood shifted as soon as they walked in, all cheerful and introducing themselves with a "nice to meet you." I could sense my friends silently praying for a meaningful connection as we entered the restaurant. I found myself quietly rooting for them too. After ordering drinks and making a toast, we started introducing ourselves. "I'm Jack. I work in corporate," I said. I had arranged with my friends beforehand to give a different profession. It's not that I'm embarrassed, but saying I'm a doctor often leads to a lot of questions and can be a bit overwhelming. "Hi, I'm Sarah. I work as an internal medicine doctor." I was taken aback to hear that amongst us was a fellow doctor. The seemingly reserved woman ordered a non-alcoholic drink and had her cell phone face up on the table. I also kept my phone out in a similar manner, always on alert for emergency calls. So I could tell that Sarah wasn't lying when she said she's a doctor. My buddies would tell me, "Come on, have a drink for once," but I just smiled and brushed it off. The moment Sarah mentioned she was a doctor, she became the center of attention, getting bombarded with questions. "I'm just a nervous in name only," she answered, looking modest or perhaps a bit apologetic. Yet, Sarah's friends seemed proud to have a doctor in their group, boasting about her as if parents would about their child's profession. I'm a doctor too, but I don't yet feel confident in my abilities, so I often avoid mentioning it in front of strangers. Sarah must have an honest and straightforward personality. I felt a tad sympathetic watching her be praised by her friends for being a female doctor and seeing her respond with a troubled smile. My buddies seemed to be growing fond of Sarah, their gaze fixated on her. Anyone could tell Sarah was beautiful, kind, and gave off a delicate vibe, and her humble demeanor probably made her even more likable. I wasn't drawn to her romantically, but I felt a kinship with her as a fellow doctor. Many female doctors at my workplace were strong-willed, had a high society vibe, and were quite snobbish. My alma mater was a state university in a place like Idaho, but my current hospital is affiliated with a private medical college, so there are many young female doctors. Hearing their conversations, there are a lot of things I don't quite understand. Their values clearly clash with mine, and coming from an average family, I often feel out of place. I've always had difficulty connecting with such women. I sensed none of that vibe from Sarah in front of me. As the night went on and we all loosened up with some drinks, the ambience in the bar suddenly shifted. "Sir, are you okay?" The distressed call of the store clerk was followed by the sight of a fallen man just beyond the open door. I immediately stood up and approached the man. I informed the clerk that I'm a doctor and diagnosed him with acute alcohol poisoning, instructing her to call an ambulance. From behind, Sarah, pushed forward by our mixer friends, came toward us visibly shaken, clearly not accustomed to such situations. Her hands trembled, taking too long to decide and seemingly on the verge of panicking. I reassured Sarah, "It's okay. I'm actually an emergency doctor. I've been through this many times. Stay calm. Let's first get him into a more comfortable position." I whispered that softly to her. Though surprised, Sarah nodded and followed my directions, turning the man to a safer position and making sure his clothing wasn't restricting him. I asked the clerk for a blanket to keep him warm. Fortunately, he was still breathing. Basic first aid seemed to suffice as we awaited the ambulance. No matter how many times you face emergencies outside the hospital, you never really get used to it. Thankfully, it wasn't more serious. Looking down with regret, Sarah replied, "I couldn't do anything," tears streaming silently. Earlier at the mixer, she had shared that she's working at a big city hospital. Judging by her age, it seemed she had limited experience. She had graduated top of her class, and it seemed everyone had high expectations of her because of it. Earlier, Sarah had said, "Struggling, I can't let everyone down." Saving lives but feeling the need to constantly meet others' expectations. I think that's wrong, but I also understand that it's not solely Sarah's fault that she feels this way. I don't care about titles and rarely talk about my profession. Perhaps because of that, people even say things like, "Oh, right, Jack was a doctor too." They even made such rude remarks. The contrast between me and Sarah, but seeing her cry out of frustration, it moved me too. I remember having a time like that myself, and I knew firsthand just how painful that kind of regret can be. Sarah, you're really something. After the man was taken away in an ambulance, Sarah hesitantly began to speak to the friends who had rushed over. "I didn't really. Thanks to your precise instructions, he was saved." She was about to say she hadn't done anything, and I interrupted her. I looked up to meet the surprised eyes of Sarah. Her friends were hounding her, saying, "You did great." Sarah looked at me as if asking why, but I figured she just didn't want to let her friends down. From Sarah's bag, a medical reference book was peeking out. Despite being a newly published edition, it was tattered and full of sticky notes. She must be putting in an immeasurable amount of effort. It might just be me being pretentious, but hard work is always rewarded. That's why I hope she doesn't get disheartened now. There will be many more setbacks in the future, but I thought that right now she doesn't need to bear the guilt of letting her friends down. The mixer ended after the incidents during the first round. I was relieved I didn't have to think of an excuse for not attending the second round. As I was about to head home with other things on my mind, a dimly looking Sarah approached me, saying, "Jack, please wait." When I asked her what was up, she bowed and thanked me. "Would you mind sharing your contact information? I'd like to stay connected both as friends and fellow doctors." She offered her phone, looking expectant, and I couldn't help but find her endearing. "Here's my number. Thank you." When I displayed my number, Sarah registered it with a happy look. After exchanging contact information, she waved and went back to join her group of friends. The ladies were planning a sleepover and mentioned they were heading out for some shopping. My buddies and I decided to hit a bar we know and have another drink. Being the usual non-drinker, I was sober and stared at my phone screen. I received a message from Sarah. She simply said, "Thank you." I replied simply, "You're welcome," and hit send. It seemed that Sarah wasn't great at communication either. That was the end of our message exchange for the moment. Afterwards, we exchanged messages a few times a week, sharing trivial things like how beautiful the sky looked today or that a flower, as she was growing, had bloomed. In our exchanges, we never made plans to go out, but rather shared random thoughts, forming an oddly comfortable bond. Still, I found our little chats comforting. We both have a lot to learn. We're both busy anyway, both of us needing to practice and learn from experience. Too much communication can be draining from time to time. I looked forward to messages from Sarah like, "Let's keep it up," or "Good job today." I realized I had feelings for her 6 months after we first met. Sarah was driven by her past experiences, always studying and attending various trainings to become a doctor who can save lives under any circumstances. I had busy days juggling work and studies too, but I always made sure to get enough sleep and took breaks when I needed to. Sarah, always being so hard on herself, seemed to push through without taking much time to rest. Every now and then, when she'd call and share how she had learned something new, I feel genuinely impressed and wanted to support her. It's tough, but it's fun. I feel like I'm finally on my path, and I want to become better every day. Hearing her laugh while saying those words, I was sure of my feelings for her. I think I had these feelings for a while, but it took me some time to recognize them. Finally, acknowledging my feelings, I decided to ask Sarah out. Sarah, when's your next day off? Next Thursday. Luckily, our day off matched, so I smoothly brought up the idea of a date. She happily accepted, and I began planning our date. We'd exchanged messages and calls, but hadn't met since the day of our initial encounter, our second meeting in total. I had decided that on this date, I'd confess my feelings. I knew we both had busy schedules, and it was uncertain when we could meet next. To make my confession successful, I needed the perfect day plan. Then one night while on duty, an emergency case came in. I quickly assessed the situation, giving directions to the nurse and rushing to the emergency entrance. The ambulance arrived, and the emergency patient was brought out. The patient was Sarah, her white knit stained with blood. A man in his 30s had collided with an oncoming vehicle while riding his motorcycle. He was unconscious and in critical condition, so we administered CPR and applied emergency bleeding control while pushing the stretcher together. Sarah explained the situation and the actions taken. I understand. I'll take it from here. I immediately went into the treatment room and hurriedly administered care, cleaning, and stitching the wound, ensuring no damage to the brain. After contacting the patient's family, I finished the treatment. Thanks to the excellent first aid provided, though the injuries were visible, they weren't critical. When I left the treatment room, waiting there was Sarah. The first aid treatment you gave was perfect and really helped the patient. The patient's life is in no danger, I said, bowing my head in gratitude. Seemingly relieved, Sarah slumped down, saying, "I'm so glad," and tears of relief flowed. After work, I went shopping and saw an accident outside the supermarket. I didn't know what to do at first, but before I realized it, my body just moved on its own. She was scared, but she said she had been reminding herself of why she had been training all this time. It took great courage for her to identify herself as a doctor. She said if she hadn't stepped in, perhaps nobody else would have. I'm aware of how hard Sarah has worked up to this point. You did well, Sarah. I gently patted her head and comforted her. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Sarah, it's getting late, but I'm almost done with work. Would you like to grab some food? There's a diner nearby that's open till morning. Suggesting a meal after work, I invited Sarah. I'd love to, actually. I haven't even had dinner yet. Sarah replied immediately, mentioning she had been hungry for a while. She looked embarrassed, holding her stomach, and said she would change out of her blood-stained sweater. She grabbed a bag with spare clothes she happened to have and dashed to the restroom. Watching her run, she seemed more dependable than before. It's hard to imagine, especially when thinking about that day when she was so nervous trying to meet her friends' expectations. Perhaps she's slowly gaining confidence in her medical profession. I threw her a good job as she disappeared from sight. After wrapping up work, I met Sarah sitting in the lobby and we headed to a nearby diner. We walked in and took our seats to pick from the menu. I ordered grilled chicken while Sarah opted for steak and potatoes. Sarah's eyes sparkled as she happily ate the food that arrived shortly afterward. "This place is amazing," she said, seeing her so pleased. I was glad I brought her here. Before I realized it, I was confessing my feelings to her. "Sarah, I like you." "Oh, well," she stopped eating, taken aback by the sudden confession. Originally, I had planned to confess during our planned date, a perfect setting I had in mind. I was equally startled, wondering why I had blurted it out now. But what's said is said. I had to convey my true feelings. "I admire your hard work, how you always give your best toward your goals. Even the casual texts or the trivial phone calls. I cherish them all. When I told her that Sarah's hard work had saved me many times, she looked down with a blushed face. This is only our second time meeting, but would you like to date me? I stood up and reached out my hand hesitantly. Sarah took it. I managed to keep going because of you, Jack. That day, I felt so helpless, yet you helped ensure I didn't let my friend down. I was relieved, but also felt pathetic. But I managed to pull through because of you. Even though I can't express it well, she said, taking a deep breath and squeezing my hand tighter. I could feel the intensity of her emotions through her firm grip. To be honest, no words were needed. I could sense the depth of her feelings. So, I like you too, Jack. If you're okay with someone like me, I'd be grateful. Her humble attitude, unchanged since we met, is so like Sarah. My affection for her only grows. And just like that, during our second meal together, our relationship began. Despite our busy schedules, we made time for each other, going on numerous dates. Sarah always said she needed more experience and knowledge, pushing herself harder every day. Inspired by her, I've been attending more training sessions and studying every day. I was worried I might make her feel lonely, like in my past relationships, but surprisingly, Sarah isn't the type to feel left out easily. We've had a smooth relationship for 2 years now. Even with our busy lives, Sarah is always by my side. The confession plan I had in mind that day didn't work out, but unexpectedly, we ended up being mutually in love. Now, Sarah and I are married and living together. Sarah is expecting a child, adding more joy to our future. Both of us, with our unending passion for our careers, continue to push and inspire each other every day. After her maternity leave, Sarah's considering switching from internal medicine to emergency medicine. I used to immerse myself in work, thinking I wasn't cut out for love. But now, meeting someone with whom I can share happiness and grow together feels like the greatest blessing in life. I'm determined to work hard to protect this happiness in the future.